Walking through the halls of Cartoon Network used to feel like a dream, but today, it feels like a graveyard. Basically, the corporate bigwigs decided that cartoons were not worth the taxes. They started pulling shows off streaming to save a few bucks, leaving fans with nothing but memories. Everyone's obsessed with the drama, but the real story is hidden in the financial ledgers. Things get even crazier when you realize the network has been handed over to a team that specializes in reality TV. Step into the crime scene of a mansion in ruins. Cartoon Network's main office used to be a place where magic happened in Burbank, California. It started back in 1992 when Ted Turner decided he wanted a place for all his cartoons to live. It was a huge hit because it mixed old classics with brand new ideas. But the body was found in 2022, right after a $43 billion merger happened. This deal was supposed to make things better, but instead, it brought out the axe. The first signs that something was wrong were the layoffs. In October of 2022, the big bosses said they were joining Cartoon Network Studios with Warner Bros. Animation. This meant 82 people lost their jobs right away, and soon 125 positions were gone across the whole department. Famous shows were just thrown away. Things like Close Enough and Infinity Train disappeared from the streaming app Max. They did this to save money on payments they owe to people who made the shows. This was not just a small mistake. More than 30 titles were wiped out. Fans were mad because it felt like their history was being erased for a few dollars. By 2024, the Cartoon Network website just stopped working. If you try to go there now, it just tells you to buy a subscription to Max. No more free games or clips for kids. This was a clear sign that making money was more important than letting kids have fun. By 2025, things got even worse. The company announced more changes because fewer people are watching cable TV. The stock price for the company dropped a lot, and people were angry that the CEO got $250 million while regular workers were getting fired. Things get even crazier when you look at the plan for 2026. The company is going to split into two different groups. Group A, the movie studio and the streaming app. Group B, old cable channels like CNN and Cartoon Network. Many people think this is like putting Cartoon Network on a sinking ship. The cable side is losing money fast because everyone is switching to the internet. While the name stays for now, the heart of the place is gone. The desks are empty, and the digital files for many shows have been deleted forever. They're doing all this because they have $50 billion in debt. This is a massive amount of money that they have to pay back, and they are using our favorite cartoons to do it. The rooms that used to be full of artists are now just quiet spaces with no one inside. It really feels like the end of an era for everyone who grew up watching these characters. The creative energy that made the 1990s so great has been replaced by spreadsheets and bank meetings. The Trail of Clues leads directly to the executive offices where the big decisions are made. David Zaslav is the main person people are looking at in this mystery. He's like the guy in the suit with the power to end any project he wants. He was the boss of Discovery for a long time before he took over the new joined company. His main goal was to cut $3 billion in spending. To him, cartoons for kids were not making enough profit compared to reality TV or sports. He wanted to focus on things that adults watch because that is where the ad money is. One of his biggest moves was stopping a movie that was almost finished just so he could get a tax break. This showed to everyone that he did not care about the art, only the money. Creators of these shows have gone online to talk about how sad they are. They say their shows were taken down without any warning. It is like years of hard work just vanished into thin air. While the animators were struggling to find new jobs, the CEO was making hundreds of millions of dollars. This made a lot of people on social media very angry. They started saying that the Cartoon Network known is gone forever because of his choices. Even if the channel is still on TV, it is not the same place it used to be. He is now moving on to the studio side of the split, leaving the cable channel behind. It seems like he is done with the old networks and is only looking at what comes next. What most people do not realize is how much power one person has over our culture. By deciding what gets to stay on a streaming app, he's basically deciding what we are allowed to remember. If a show is deleted and you cannot buy it anymore, it basically does not exist anymore. This is a huge problem for the history of animation. We are seeing a shift where shows are treated like boxes in a warehouse instead of stories people love. The debt of the company is so high that they are willing to burn their own library to stay afloat. This kind of thinking has turned the industry upside down. Animators are now afraid that their next project could get deleted at any moment. It is hard to be creative when you know your work might never be seen by anyone. The calmness of the boardroom hides the chaos they are causing for thousands of families who work in this business. It has been missing for years, but this key detail shows that the problem goes much deeper than just one man. Maybe the merger itself is the real bad guy here. Joining Warner Media and Discovery was supposed to create a giant company that could beat Disney and Netflix. Instead, it created a mess that is $50 billion in debt. Cartoon Network got caught in the middle of this fight. Before the merger, the channel was doing great with hits like Steven Universe. But after the deal, everything changed. The company started caring more about cheap reality shows because they are easier to make. By 2023, the teams that come up with new ideas were mostly gone. This led to fewer original shows being made. The website shutting down in 2024 was the final proof that they only care about making people pay for Max. They don't want anything to be free anymore. The motive for the merger was to be the biggest in the streaming wars, but it has not worked out very well. Many people are now saying that we need better laws to stop these giant companies from joining together and ruining everything. The split in 2026 is basically an admission that the merger failed. They are separating the profitable parts from the parts that are losing money. Cartoon Network is being left on the side that is losing. This corporate marriage was doomed from the start because the two companies have very different goals. One side is about big movies and creative stories, while the other was about low-cost TV. When they combined, the creative side lost the battle. Now, the results of that loss are very visible every day. Shows are getting canceled before they even have a chance to find an audience. The library of classic cartoons is being used as a pawn in a game of billionaire chess. It is a sad ending for a brand that used to represent the best of what TV could be. The fans are the ones who lose the most because their favorite world is being torn apart. Even the name might be sold off or licensed out to someone else. It is a giant disaster that could have been avoided if they cared more about the fans. So here's the deal. The money is disappearing, and the art's going with it. If you look at the bigger picture, you can see that corporate greed is a huge factor. The whole media world changed from cable TV to streaming apps. This made niche channels like Cartoon Network look less valuable to the people in charge. Cable subscriptions have dropped by 20% since 2019. This hit the company very hard in their pockets. Their response was to purge the library to save on taxes and royalty checks. They ignored the fans who were begging them to stop. People online started posting "Rest in Peace Cartoon Network" as a way to show their sadness. Even though the channel didn't turn off completely, the spirit of it died. Creators have spoken out about how these big deals stop people from being innovative. They would rather make a reboot of an old show than try something new and risky. This is why we see the same characters over and over again. The 2026 split means the company is giving up on the idea of a big cable family. They're just trying to protect their stock price now. The hunger for more profit has left the cupboards bare for the artists. They're being told to do more with less money every single year. When a show becomes a hit, the company finds ways to avoid paying the people who made it. This led to animators trying to form unions to protect themselves. They want fair pay and they want their work to be safe from being deleted. But the big companies have so much power that it is hard to win that fight. The streaming wars have turned into a battle of who can cut the most costs. It's not about who has the best shows anymore. It is about who can survive the debt. Cartoon Network is just one of the many victims in this high-stakes game. The brand that defined childhood for millions is being traded around like a stock. It is a cold way to treat something that people feel so much love for. The list of shows lost is longer than most people realize. Every good murder mystery requires a body, or in this case, a pile of them high enough to fill a massive warehouse. The lost library of Cartoon Network is not merely a metaphor for corporate restructuring, it is a digital graveyard filled with unfinished business and unrequited love. When we examine the wreckage left behind, titles like Mao Mao, Heroes of Pure Heart, and Victor and Valentino stand out like chalk outlines on the cold pavement. These were not just pieces of content to be moved around on a spreadsheet. They were ongoing narratives with dedicated fan bases, ended abruptly before they could reach their natural conclusions. They were effectively silenced in the middle of a sentence, leaving viewers hanging forever. The Great Purge of 2022 remains one of the most chilling chapters in modern media history. In a move that felt less like a strategic business pivot and more like a midnight heist, 37 titles were scrubbed from the Max streaming platform almost overnight. This was not limited to experimental new projects either. The vacuum was so powerful that it even sucked up legacy episodes of Sesame Street, a show that has served as a cultural cornerstone for multiple generations. The industry was left in a state of total shock. Imagine being a creator who spent 5 dedicated years meticulously crafting a world, only to wake up and find an entire professional portfolio has been deleted from the internet for the sake of a corporate tax write-off. The impact of this systematic erasure ripples far beyond a simple content unavailable message on a screen. Cartoon Network was historically a pioneer in representation and experimental storytelling. It was the place where characters from every imaginable walk of life found a home, inspiring a generation of children who finally saw their own lives reflected on the screen. By deleting these stories, the network did not just save money, they robbed the future of its variety and its soul. Without that experimental spirit, the horizon of animation looks significantly more desolate. We're now staring down a future where the safe choice is the only choice allowed by the board of directors. Following the corporate split, the situation has grown even more dire. A specific branch of the company that retained the linear channel lacks the tools, the budget, and the creative DNA to produce new original series. This means we're facing a grim reality where the next 10 years of the channel might just be a decade of repetitive reruns. A loop of the same 3 or 4 profitable shows played until the audience grows tired and moves on. There is a profound and stinging irony in the fact that the dreams of these talented artists are being dismantled by executives who have likely never held a stylus or drawn a single frame of animation in their lives. It takes a village of creators' minds years of grueling labor to get a show onto the airwaves, yet it takes a single person in a suit exactly 1 second to hit the delete key. This has created a deep-seated culture of fear within the animation industry. Young aspiring artists are looking at the rubble of the past few years and asking a terrifying question: is it even worth the try? We are seeing a massive brain drain as talent flees to independent platforms or attempts to build their own boutique studios. However, without the massive reach of a global giant like Cartoon Network, it is much harder for these new, diverse voices to be heard for the public. Ideas that never were, the brilliant pitches that were never made, are being lost because the artists are too discouraged to walk through the door. If we are to treat the decline of Cartoon Network as a crime, we have to admit it was not the work of a lone gunman. This was a coordinated effort, a group project where everyone held a knife. The CEO provided the sharp edge of the budget cuts, the merger provided the crushing weight of debt, and a relentless pursuit of short-term profit provided the motive. But the silent accomplice in the room is the shifting landscape of the media industry itself. Cable TV is in its twilight years, and the titans of the industry are panicking. They do not know how to transition to a streaming-first world without cannibalizing the very art that made them successful in the first place. The 2026 split might be the definitive end of the story. There is a very real possibility that the name Cartoon Network will simply become a legacy brand owned by a company primarily focused on reality TV and unscripted content. While segments like Adult Swim manage to keep their heads above water through a fiercely loyal niche audience, the main flagship channel is sinking fast. We have to wonder if all this happened by accident or if it was a calculated move to pivot away from high-cost original production. To the fans, it is a bitter pill to swallow when stories they grew up with are treated like disposable trash to be tossed aside for a minor financial gain. But perhaps there is still a tiny flicker of hope buried in the ruins. Despite the corporate demolition, there is a stubborn and beautiful resistance growing. These characters and stories do not just exist on a corporate server. They live in the hearts of the viewers and on the physical discs and hard drives that fans have spent years archiving. The creators who were shown the door have not stopped being creative. They simply moved their talents elsewhere. If the network was a mansion, the building may be in ruins, but the architects and the builders are still very much alive and working. We should keep a close eye on what happens throughout 2026. That will be the final test of whether Cartoon Network can ever truly come back, or if it is gone for good. The mystery is mostly solved, but the future is still unwritten. We are watching a giant fall in real time, and it is a lesson for every other creative business out there. Don't let the money men destroy what makes life fun. The battle for the soul of animation is just beginning, and the final verdict will depend on whether art is valued over the bottom line. Was Cartoon Network's end a calculated move or a huge mistake by greedy bosses? Do you think animation can ever be safe in a world of big mergers? Let us know what you think in the comments. If you learned something new about this mystery, make sure to like and subscribe for more deep dives.